guys, it's Naseem here. Now before I start the video, I have one serious confession. I hated this phone, but now I hate it a little less. And the reason that I hated the iPhone 14 Plus is because I never really got the point of it. It looked and operated just like the iPhone 14. The size was nice, but the screen has a 60 Hz refresh rate, which honestly makes it feel outdated. And it has a really bad price that it can't live up to because, again, it operates like the iPhone 14. And even though at first I didn't like this phone at all, I decided to let my reviewer guard down and use it with no bias whatsoever. And I must admit, this is a phone that I think a lot of people will enjoy. It has the same A15 Bionic chip as the iPhone 13, but is also powerful enough to handle any app smoothly. It has an amazing battery life that was able to last me all day with no problem. It has a beautiful display that looks really great when using it, and has a really good build quality that has lasted me very well up until this point. And even though there are many good things to be said about the iPhone 14 Plus, it's not absolutely amazing and has given me some problems. Now there are some software bugs that can really get annoying. The battery life is good, but the iPhone 13 Pro costs less than this phone and can last longer. And the fact that it has a 60 Hz refresh rate is beyond pathetic. And despite these obvious cons, I do believe that there are many people who will like the iPhone 14 Plus, and hopefully this video will help you decide whether or not it's right for you. Now starting with design, the iPhone 14 Plus has kept that signature look from the previous versions, which is good and bad at the same time. Now it's good because they decided to stick to a design that people like, but it's also bad because there's no innovation whatsoever. I really wish that they added the dynamic island notch, since there are no other improvements from last year's version, or even put USB-C, or even make it 120 Hz. I don't know, but some type of improvement would have helped. And besides the minor improvements they could have made, the phone looks the exact same as the iPhone 13, from the power button, volume rockers and mute switch, all the way down to the speakers, lightning port, and the back. But looking at its color, the version that I have is product red, and this is easily my favorite color in recent years. It has that really nice red matte sides, along with a default red glass back that gives it a right amount of depth and really results in a really good looking device. Now looking at the display, the iPhone 14 Plus has a 6.7 inch Super Retina XDR display that, just like the iPhone 13, was pretty good. Whenever I was scrolling through my phone, it looked very nice, everything looked good, the responsiveness was very precise, and I had no complaints about the overall feel. But the only problem that I had with it was the refresh rate. The fact that it's 60 Hz is ridiculous, and I know that there are many people who won't mind if their screen is 120 Hz or even 60 Hz, but if that's the case, Apple shouldn't be charging over $900 for a below average phone. Also, whenever I was scrolling through apps, it felt a little laggy and you could tell the frame rate dropped as soon as you started going through the app. So again, hopefully Apple can implement a higher refresh rate on the base model's iPhones. The bezels are pretty small. Right here you can see that they're wrapped around nicely around the screen and are much cleaner overall compared to previous versions. The notch is very small, so it's not noticeable when compared to older iPhones. Now when it comes to brightness, the iPhone 14 Plus is at 800 nits, which is much dimmer than the iPhone 14 Pro Max, and I really noticed the difference when I was outside. I had trouble seeing the screen when I was outside, and because I live in LA, there's less shade around, so there are many times where I couldn't see at all when the sun was out. Now when it comes to the size of the 14 Plus, I can't say whether or not you will love it or hate it, but I do want to list some pros and cons that you can look out for. Now the pros of having a big screen is that the viewing experience is much better, the battery is bigger, so it'll be able to last longer, and bigger phones tend to have slightly better resolution. Now the cons of having a big screen is that it makes it much harder to use with one hand. Trying to simply reach to the top of the screen requires more work, and you'll need some pretty big pockets if you want to store your phone. But again, I want to let you guys outweigh the pros and cons because everyone's needs are different. Now another problem that I had with the display was the fact that Apple still hasn't added a fingerprint sensor. Now don't get me wrong, I think that the iPhone has the best facial recognition in the game with Face ID, but it still would have been nice to have that extra function when unlocking my phone. Now the resolution and viewing experience of the 14 Plus's display is an amazing benefit when it comes to actually using the device. I was able to see everything very clearly when watching videos. Playing games on it was as fun as ever, and I wanted to give you guys an idea of what it looked like when watching something and playing the game.
Against the Lakers. Anderson, boy, going to work as Kobe Bryant. Going to work down low on the youngster.
Now the 14 Plus has a 4300 milliamp hour battery that is the exact same as the iPhone 14 Pro Max and was easily able to last me all day with no problem, even with heavy use. And mind you, I'm the type of person that is usually on my phone all day doing things like writing scripts, playing B-roll, shooting videos, scrolling through social media, watching YouTube videos, and texting my friends. And I'm usually getting over 9 hours of on-screen time a day, and I only charge my phone when I'm sleeping. I didn't have to put my phone on power saving mode. Most of the time I did use it to the max, and it was still able to perform very well. So if you do get the 14 Plus, battery won't be an issue. And if I could give a quick estimate, I would usually say my battery is on 25% by the end of the day, which is really good and was pretty much the same as my iPhone 14 Pro Max. Now right now my battery health is at 100%, which hopefully keeps up longer. Previous iPhones are known to have the battery significantly drop after a few months, so hopefully the 14 Plus breaks that streak. Now the last thing that I wanted to touch on when it came to the battery was the charging, and if I'm being honest, the charging isn't that great in terms of speed. It would take well over an hour to get to 100%. But like I said before, you only need one charge, so I think the long-lasting battery is a great trade-off. Now looking at software, the 14 Plus supports iOS 16, and just like on any other iPhone, you have the app drawer that holds and categorizes all your apps. You have that new wallpaper system that is a huge upgrade and feels much smoother on this phone, and you have many more minor things that will make the phone feel even more sleeker. But just because all of this stuff is designed to be sleeker, doesn't mean it'll make it perfect. Like there were many times where my 14 Plus would freeze on me and I would have to restart the phone for it to correct itself. And this didn't happen every day, but I wanted to keep you guys updated on how it's holding up. But besides the frequent freezes, the software was very smooth and worked well. It felt just like the 14 Pro Max, and I feel like most of you guys will realize that in terms of software, it's not that much different from other models. I also decided to test out some games on the 14 Plus. The game I'm playing right now is a game that will really test out the chip, and as you can see, it holds up really well, and I didn't get any lags while playing. The haptics weren't that great if I'm being honest. There were times where I would have my phone on vibrate, but would miss out on some messages because I couldn't hear it. So overall, I would say that they're a total downgrade from last year. Now the final thing that I wanted to note was that the 14 Plus will be getting 5 to 6 years worth of software upgrades. So when it comes to longevity, it will definitely have you covered. Now just like the 14 Plus has some really loud speakers that were pretty good whenever I used them. I would usually use them in the house whenever watching videos on social media or YouTube. And I really didn't have to turn it up because they were pretty loud even on the lower tiers of volume, so I never was really in a position where I had to max out the volume. I tested out how they sounded when playing music, and if I'm being honest, they're very loud, but the quality isn't the greatest when the volume gets to the max. I also used my 14 Plus as my alarm, and I had no problem waking up to it. I didn't have to set multiple alarms, and I didn't have to worry too much about receiving important notifications whenever I turned on my ringer. And right here, I'm going to give you guys an idea of how the speakers sound. Now the iPhone 14 Plus has a 12 megapixel main camera along with a 12 megapixel front and 12 megapixel ultra wide, and based on my usage over the past couple of months, I will say that the pictures look pretty amazing. Starting with the zoom and ultra wide modes, the 14 Plus only has 2 different modes, and of course the quality gets dumbed down once you get into the ultra wide mode, but I found all of the pictures to still look really great compared to other smartphones. The shutter speed was very good from the start. I decided to test it out by shooting a moving cat, and as you can see right here, the camera was able to capture it beautifully no matter how fast they were going, so I was pretty satisfied. But it was a totally different story once the nighttime came around, especially once the camera shifted in night mode. Like right here, you can see that whenever I try to snap a flick in night mode, it takes extremely long and I have to hold the camera extremely still, so hopefully this improves in the future. Now next up, I wanted to show you guys how the camera performed in different environments, and the first environment I will be starting with is the daytime. Now starting with the outside photos, we can see that they have a really great shadow of depth whenever I'm taking photos, along with a nice blur, and this becomes the main focus once I use portrait mode, and just like every other iPhone, the pictures look really good. I also took some photos of random street objects, the sky, different aspects of nature, and I can honestly say that the 14 Plus held up very well in these environments, and I'm really impressed. Now testing it out in a night setting, I would pretty much say that everything looked good. The camera will automatically switch to night mode, and once I snap the shot, it will brighten up everything in that photo so that you can see very clearly. And again, it does look amazing, but the only complaint that I have is the shutter speed, because having to hold it still for a long time is very annoying. Now taking a look at the inside photos, the 14 Plus was able to capture everything very nice, and I found the pictures to be slightly more detailed than the 13 in terms of sharpness. Even when taking selfies, you can see how the camera handles already good lighting to produce an overall nicely taken photo. My skin tone looked really good, and the sharpness was at its peak. Now when it comes to shooting video, the 14 Plus is easily one of my favorite phones to shoot. You have many different modes and frame rates to choose from, but I prefer to shoot my videos in 4K at 30 frames per second because not only does it look good in 4K, but the 30 frames per second makes it look more realistic and not too smooth like the 60 frames would. The video stabilization was out of this world. I shoot my videos with my phone, so whenever I'm shooting an object, I can use everything handheld and the movements will be very smooth, which was very impressive. And just like every other iPhone, I decided to try out the new action mode, and if I'm being honest, it was insanely good, but for most people, you'll be completely fine with regular stabilization, especially since action mode will dumb down the quality, so you're honestly better off just using a regular camera. So all in all, I would definitely say that the iPhone 14 Plus has an amazing video camera that'll give you consistently good shots. So if you're someone who wants to shoot content or you just want a solid camera, the 14 Plus has got you covered. So here's the final question. Is the iPhone 14 Plus a great phone to buy in 2022? Well, I think that it's a good phone, but I also think that there are better options. And by better options, I mean the iPhone 13 Pro. It has a better battery life, it has less bugs, and it gives you a better experience across the board while also costing around the same price. But if you're someone who does prefer the iPhone 14 Plus, it's a phone that you'll be very satisfied with, and it's also slightly cheaper than the 14 Pro Max, so that's an added benefit. But there it is, you guys, my review on the iPhone 14 Plus. And if you guys have any questions for me, you can ask them in the comment section down below. And if you guys made it to the end of this video, I'd like to say thank you for sticking around, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe. It'll be very appreciated. And as far as social media, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.